and welcome to Qubit Education. In this lesson we are going to work through understanding Venn diagrams, and this is for GCSE Maths, the foundation level. So our objectives for today's lesson are to know what a Venn diagram is, draw some simple Venn diagrams given some information, describe sets, and to know some notation and vocabulary surrounding Venn diagrams. We'll also write some probabilities based on these as well. Okay, so let's start with an example. Here we've been given two different sets of numbers. Okay, we have set A and set B. Okay, and you're being asked to draw a Venn diagram to explain or show this information. Okay, so first things first, what is in set A and what is in set B? And all you need to do is draw your Venn diagram first. So a Venn diagram is basically, if I do this in orange, is basically a nice rectangle. And inside that rectangle we have two circles. I'm sorry this isn't drawn especially neatly. And we have set A on one side and set B on the other. Okay. Now what we need to do is we show on a Venn diagram that the centre section, this bit in the middle here, is where something turns up in both A and B. So here is set A, and everything that we see in set A will go in this circle, and everything we see in set B will go in this circle, within reason. The easiest thing that we could do is we could check to see what numbers are in both A and B. So if we look through set A, we have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 and 18. And in set B, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 and 18. So we could say that these are multiples of 3. And these are obviously multiples of 2. Alright. The multiples of 3 and the multiples of 2 have overlapping numbers. So both of these sets of numbers have a 6 in them. They both have 12 and they both have 18. So those numbers will go in the middle. Okay, they are in both of those. All right. Now, we need to remember that if I just use a different colour, this is A altogether. Okay, and we've already put 6, 12 and 18 in there because they're in the middle section. So everything else from A will then go in this side, 3, 9 and 15. Nice and easy. We then have this whole section being B. Okay, and we've already put in 6, 12 and 18. So now we can put in the rest. We can put in 2, 4, 8, 10, 14 and 16. Okay. Now, everything from set A and set B fits inside the circles. But if we had something different, something else that didn't go into both of those, then we would put it anywhere inside this rectangle. Okay. You'll see an example of that in a moment. Okay, so just to go through a few extra questions. Looking at the same set of numbers, some questions that might come up in the exam could be something like this. Describe the numbers in set A. Well, I've already discussed these with you anyway, but we can see that the numbers in set A are multiples of 3. And we can say that they're all less than 20 if we wanted to, but multiples of 3 would be enough to give you the mark in the test. And then the next one says describe the numbers in set B. Well, set B are multiples of 2. Multiples of 2. And they're also less than 20. Okay? And then this next question says describe the numbers in A and then this funny symbol here, B. This funny symbol that looks a bit like an N means intersect. Okay, and that means like within your two circles within your Venn diagram, what is in this middle section? Okay, So if we just go back to our previous slide, we can see in that middle section we have 6, 12 and 18. Okay, so here we would say that these are multiples of 6 because we're describing them. Multiples of 6 less than 20. Okay, and we can put in there 6, 12, 18 just to show that we know which numbers were in that middle section. Okay, we're just going to go through in a moment and have a look at these different types of notation and what they all mean. First of all, let's have a look at another example of a Venn diagram. So it says here, out of 40 students, 14 study French, 29 study German, and 5 study both. And it says to complete the Venn diagram. Now, first of all, we've drawn our Venn diagram and we've got here French and then German here. Okay, now I'm just going to take a different colour pen so we can put everything in. Now it says, first of all, that 40 students altogether, 14 study French, 29 study German, 5 study both. So because I know that 5 study both, I'm going to put 5 just in there. Okay. Okay, and in fact, I was going to do that just because everything else is using the black pen. So, okay, 5 study both. So 5 is going to go in the middle. Okay, since 5 students study French and German, okay, then 5 of the 14 French students have been accounted for already. So we actually need to work out how many go in here. We do 14 take away 5, which is 9. So 9 would go in there. I'm not going to keep changing the colour. It's going to be a waste of time. Okay, so we need to put that there because altogether, this whole circle here encompasses 14 learners. Okay, so we can't have 14 in this section because that would make 19 learners and we don't have that many. We then know that 29 students studied German, but again, 5 have been accounted for because they already study French as well. They study both. So 29 take away 5 is 24, and 24 would go in there. Okay, so then altogether in this circle, we have 29. Okay, now finally, we just need to check, because we know that there are 40 students altogether, but if we added up the students that we have 40 students altogether, 9 plus 5 plus 24, okay, that only comes to 38. Now we have 40 students altogether, so 40 take away 38 leaves us with 2, meaning there'd be 2 that didn't study any of those languages, and we needed to put them in the outside section of the Venn diagram. Okay? Okay, so I hope that was quite clear. It seems to feel like I explained it okay. Okay, so I've just taken off the annotation that I made because I've brought these questions up and I want you to have a little go at answering them. If you want to pause the video and do that first, then you can do. Okay, but the questions here say, how many students study neither French nor German? Okay, so think about what I've just said whilst I explained the Venn diagram. The next question says, how many students study at least one language? And then, what is the probability that a student picked at random studies German but not French? So pause the video and have a go, and then press play for the answers. Okay, if you have had a go, let's go through them. How many students study neither French nor German? Well, in this case, it says here that there are 2 students down here that didn't study any language. So we can just write in there 2 students. Okay. Then it says, how many students study at least one language? Well, we know that altogether, this, and this equals 38, which means 38 students studied at least one. Okay, some studied 2. Okay, but at least one was 38 learners. Okay, so we'd have to add up all of that there. And then finally, it says, what is the probability that a student picked at random studies German but not French? Okay, now we have to be very careful here, because if they study German, it can't be the whole circle, because this is also French. And we only want the ones that study German and not French. So there's going to be the 24 just there. Okay, probability, so we have to write that as a total. So it would be 24, okay, out of 40. All right. 24 out of 40, we can either do that on a calculator or not on a calculator. If we did this on a calculator, which, you know, most of the time it should come up on the calculator paper, we can just do 24 divided by 40 and it'll give us 0.6. Okay, and that's 60%. 60% did not, studied German but not French. So we can write that as a probability like that. Okay. If you wanted to do it, if this was on a non-calculator, which this question isn't too tricky, I'll just show you how to do it on a non-calculator. We could divide this down to give us 12 over 20. You can half it, see, divide by 2. Cancel down the fraction. We could cancel down again, half it again, giving us 6 over 10. You should then know that 6 over 10, you can either leave that as it is, okay, is 60%. You could also write it as 3/5 and you would be given the mark, okay? So you'd be given the mark for either of those answers. All right, and that's as a probability. Okay, let's go through a Venn diagram notation and what each section of a Venn diagram means. So, I'm just going to go through and explain what each of these types of Venn diagram mean. So basically, if this whole section A here is coloured in, all right, that is asking you to tell me what is in set A. In total, what is in set A. And this one is saying what is in set B in total, okay? That's easy to see because it's asking for the whole circle. Okay, so what is in set A, and this one is what is in set B. Okay, so it might ask you, you know, what is the probability of choosing a number from set A? Which means you'd have to find all of the numbers that could be in there. What is the probability of choosing a number from set B? And we'd have to choose all the numbers that are in there. Okay. Okay, for this one is saying all of the numbers that aren't in A, okay, and it's written like this, and we call it the complement of A, okay. So there might be a question that says, what is the probability of choosing A with this little apostrophe, okay, and you basically need to say, you need to show the probability of anything that isn't in A. Anything not in A. Okay? Now, the next one would be exactly the opposite. This one is saying anything that isn't in B. So we call this the complement of B. Okay? So anything not in B. Again, the exam question could be, what is the probability of something not being in B? Okay, the probability. So if we had like numbers in here, 3, 2, 1, 7, and we also had numbers in here. Okay, the probability of anything not being in B, which means it would be anything of these here. And anything that's outside. You wouldn't choose any of the numbers in B because they want it to be anything not in B. Okay? Alright, now, the last two, quite tricky, so let's just have a look at those. Okay, so this last one we have here, this first one, this is saying basically we have to write it like this, A and then this funny U shape, B. And this means A union B. So this is like saying what's the probability of getting anything that is in A or B all together. Okay. So basically, what's the probability of choosing a number in A union B? And you would say any of the numbers in here. I'm going to do some examples of this in a minute, and you'll be able to understand what it means a little bit more. And then finally, this one is A and then intersect B. Okay, and I mentioned this one earlier. A intersect B. Okay, and this just means the intersection. It means not A, but not B. Okay, sorry, not A. And I'm going to describe it, so not A, but not B. So only the middle. All right. So this section here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, hopefully you've took down notes on all of those, because we're going to do some examples now, and hopefully you'll be able to understand it a little bit better. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, so here is another example of a Venn diagram, and it wants to know if a number is chosen at random, what is the probability of getting the following? So if you'd like to have a go at these questions first before I go through the answers, you can. Just explain them a little bit. So this first one, question number 1, is saying the probability of getting a number in C. This one is the probability of getting a number in D. This one is the probability of getting the complement of C. Okay, the complement of C meaning not in C. This one's the complement of D, so not in D. This one is the the probability of getting C union D, okay? And this one is the probability of C intersect D, all right? If you'd like to pause the video and have a go, please do, and then I will be right with you. Okay, so let's go through these then. The probability of getting C. Well, the probability of getting a C is anything in here, isn't it? Because this is the C circle. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So that's 5 out of, and the total amount of numbers we've got is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it'd be 5 out of 7. Okay. If you wanted to write that as a probability, you could do 5 divided by 7 to give you the decimal. I'm not going to do it. And then times it by 100 to give you the percentage. But you can leave it as a fraction, that's absolutely fine, and that's what we're going to do today. Okay, what is the probability of getting D then? Well, as we know, this is D. Okay, anything in D, so that's 1, 2, 3. So that's 3 out of 7. Okay. Now, question 3 is saying, what is the probability of the complement of C? The complement of C is anything that isn't in C. Okay. Now, we need to be very careful here, because C is this entire circle, even if it's also included with D. So the probability of not getting C, the complement of C, is this number here and this number here. So that's 2 out of 7. Our next question says, what is the probability of getting the complement of D? Okay, well, again, D is this circle here. Okay, if I just, that whole circle. So not getting D would be 1, 2, 3, and then this 2 again. So that's 4. 4 out of 7. Okay. All right, so next, the probability of C union D, okay? That's C and D all together, okay? So these are C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and these are D, 1, 2, 3. So all together, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers. So that'd be 6 out of 7, okay? And then finally, our last number is C intersect D, which is anything in the middle section just here, which is 8 and 5. So that's only two numbers, 2 out of 7. Okay. All right, so I hope you're starting to understand the set notation a little bit more. Okay. I think this would really help you to keep practicing things like this. And there's lots of exercises online, or there'll be a resource attached to this video anyway, so you can go away and do some more questions. Okay, let's do one more example then, and then we can finish off. One more Venn diagram, and it says, if a number is chosen at random, what is the probability of the following? So these are a little bit more complicated now, because if you want to pause the video, please do. I'll just explain a little bit. This one is saying, what is the probability of the complement of C intersect the complement of D? Okay, so that basically means not C intersect not D. So that just means only the numbers outside. Okay, so it's only going to be these two numbers here. Okay, altogether we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 numbers, and 2 of them are on the outside. So the not C intersect not B would be the numbers on the outside, okay? Because we don't want any of C or D or the intersect, okay? This next one, probability of C union not D. That means, what's the probability of getting C or not getting D? Okay, so the probability of getting C is these 4 numbers within C. Okay, so that's that one. Let's just write that there, 4. The probability of not getting D, meaning we don't want D, are these 2 numbers down here, because we don't want D. So that's 2. So altogether that's 6 out of 8. Okay, sorry, these are just a little bit more complicated. Then finally this last one is saying, what is the probability of getting the complement of C union the complement of D? So what is the probability of getting not C and not D? What is the probability of getting them? Okay, so we need the probability of not C, which is this one and this one. Okay, and this one and this one. And the probability of not D, this one, and this one. We can't use the middle number because that is C and D. So basically it means everything outside of the intersection. Okay, and that is 7 out of 8. All right. Okay, so what I would do is watch that video a few times just to get your head around Venn diagrams. They can be complicated, especially when you have questions like this. Usually in foundation, they won't get that hard. But just in case, make sure you are familiarising yourself and feeling confident with the notation. Okay. All right, so hopefully now you know what a Venn diagram is. Okay, and it's basically just a diagram where you're going to put values in either side of the circle, and then anything that's in both of those sets would go in the middle. You've drawn some simple Venn diagrams when given information. We've described sets, and you've known some vocabulary and notation surrounding Venn diagrams, and you've used them, and we've done examples. We've then written some probabilities based on Venn diagrams. Okay, so I again would urge you to watch that a few times to make sure you understand everything. Go through the set notation examples as well as the questions at the end, just to make sure you understand them wholeheartedly. Thank you so much for using Cuba Education, and I hope to see you again soon.